Okay, we've got the bottom surface of the wing covered, and you can see there's a certain amount of slack in it. But on the other side of the coin, there's not a lot of baggy wrinkles. The fabric's pulled on nice and even. See, we don't have our cutouts around the lift strut fittings yet. We'll just go ahead and shrink, let that tent around it, and then we'll demonstrate how to cut that and put some reinforcing patches around that. The thing you want to really pay attention to is you get a very even shrink. We'll normally start at about the middle of the wing, come down center opposite bays of that, and keep working back and forth to keep the shrink as uniform as we can. What you want to avoid is starting at one end, because then you pull the shrink one direction, fabric starts coming up to tension, but now the weave is shrunk tighter and closer here than it will be on the opposite end. It's really important to try to get as uniform a shrink on this as you can. The procedure for shrinking, you need a heavy iron, preferably about 1100 watts. This is an old steam iron. We've got a little flash point thermometer here. We can actually check our temperatures. We're running in about the 238, 240 right now. What you want is around 250, and that first shrink will be around 250. That stabilizes and gets the initial wrinkles out of it, and then after that's done, we will go ahead and fabric the other side of the wing, and then after that we'll go ahead and bring everything up to full shrink. Now, all we're doing on this first shrink on this one right now is pulling the light tension on it, so what we have is a very nice straight uniform area for any surfaces we have to glue back into. An example is on the trailing edge here. We want that fabric pulled nice and tight, so when we do our overlap seam on the top fabric, we have a nice smooth uniform area there to glue into. So, okay, we're running right at our 250 on the iron now. Might be just a tiny bit low. It's always a good idea when you do your shrink to start over the rib. The rib's a heat sink. So start the initial shrink over the ribs. Move the iron at about this pace here. Keep in mind that the temperature on this iron, if it's properly set, will never hurt the fabric. You can walk off and leave this sit here all afternoon, and it's not going to have any damage to it because it only brings it up to the 250 degrees. So you're not going to damage the fabric. It's better off to move a little slow than it is to go too fast and not get enough shrink on it. And again, the ribs are a heat sink, so you're going to have to go a little slower over the ribs. Okay, now we've got the center bay, we've got the center of the outboard bay. We're going to come in here and catch about right in here, again starting at about the center of the rib. Come right on up the rib. You can see the shrinkage is taking place right around the edge of the iron. It kind of demonstrates another reason why it's very important that you don't start at one end. You can see here where the shrink is actually coming in right at the iron. We actually have pulled some tension right in here. We still have no shrinkage out here. So again, it's important that we don't pull everything in one direction. All right, we've got 3 bays now. We're going to go ahead and we'll come right down here again. Come out here to this outboard bay here, catch a strip here. And again, the initial shrink we're doing is right over the ribs. And when you get on the top surface of the wing, you're going to find generally if you shrink the ribs first and then go to the open bays between the ribs, that you're going to have a little less sag between ribs. As we're shrinking here and you do each rib, it actually starts pulling a little tension on those open bays. And like I say, you're going to have less fabric sag between them. Main thing here is we just kind of keep alternating our pattern. Try to keep the shrink as uniform as you can. Pretty quick we'll have all of the rib bays ironed here, individual ribs ironed. Now we'll start working on the open bays. On 250 degrees, normally I'll just iron one time. When we get into the 300 and 350 final shrinks, well, that's when you're bringing it up to the full tension, really stabilizing the fabric. Then we'll iron a minimum of 2 to 3 times, and that'll be done in a cross pattern, 90-degree hatch pattern. The idea is to try to get every square inch of this fabric up to full tension as possible. You can see we're starting to tighten around the strut fittings there. Okay, all of the rib sections have been ironed. We're going to come back now about to the center of the wing. We're going to start working in between the rib bays. You can see it starting to pull all the wrinkles out of there. Now on some real light wing structures, you have to be careful. If this is a light wood wing, we'd possibly stop at about the next shrink at 300 degrees. Some very light ones, if you don't go with the real lightweight fabric, the 1.7 ounce, you might find that you're going to have to stop here at the 250 degree because the fabric can actually pull up tight enough that it can start doing damage to lightweight wood structures. This fabric here is a 102. It's the medium weight fabric. This is pretty much the standard that's used on almost all of your lightweight certified airplanes, like your Cubs and Champs and things like that. This particular aircraft here, again, is a Piper Colt. These wings can easily stand the full 350 degrees. You can see by the looks of it now that we're starting to really get the wrinkles out of it. You get back, kind of take a pan, you can see the wrinkles in the rib bays in between. We got in here, we got some in here. If you watch what happens now, we put the iron on here, you see those immediately pull right out as the fabric starts to shrink. And again, we're really kind of alternating our pattern. Main thing is to try to keep the shrink real even. Step down here to the root section here. You can see around the nav light how pretty that fabric shrinks and forms its own natural line around there. Okay, all the bays of the wing have been shrunk. We're just going to make a little pass all the way down the wing now, just to make sure there's not any areas that got missed. And earlier we mentioned that we didn't put glue on the top, in this case the bottom edge, the lip of the false spar. The reason for that, you can see that false spar does not necessarily follow the line of the fabric. Now if that was glued to that, we'd have a very irregular fabric edge here. So it is, we've got a nice straight transition along the break in that, which is a nice straight line. You see how the fabric comes off there, very clean, makes a very nice transition without any wrinkles. It doesn't have any divots in it where it's sucked down into that false spar where that's doesn't maintain a perfect alignment all the time. So again, the main thing in this first shrink was to work from the center and work both directions. Main idea is to try to keep the shrinkage as uniform as you can, where you're not pulling everything in one direction, trying to just uniformly shrink it up. And by doing that, you're going to have a much nicer fit on the fabric. You're going to not have the tendency for areas to loosen up in cold, damp weather, because all of it's got the same uniform shrinkage to it. I can't stress that enough. This first shrink is really important. And again, our little circus tents there are not going to be a problem. Since we finish this shrink, we'll demonstrate how to go ahead and take care of those areas there. Got one little spot up here by the aileron bay that's not been shrunk yet. It'll come out right now. And again, you can see along the trailing edge how nice that transition is on the fabric. We don't have any glue there to cause puckers or low spots in it. It could pick its own natural line as it flows into the rib. On our first shrink on the fabric, again this is 102 Seconite. As you can see here, we've got our lift strut fittings. It's a lot easier on small protrusions like this to just cover over the top of them and then cut them out. If you try to pre-cut these, if you're not very, very careful how you glue the fabric down, how you shrink it, you're going to find that your cuts no longer fit. So what we're going to do, have a little razor knife here, or a single edge safety razor blade works really well. Main thing, what we want to do is come right beside our strut fittings here. Just make some nice light initial cuts. And what we're going to do now is just run that knife down, follow the edge of the strut fitting. Just try not to overdo it. We can always trim a little extra if we need to. And you can see as we trim that, the fabric starts to relax around the edges there a little bit. We're going to come past the ends just a small amount here. We're going to go ahead now, cut right through these. Now, see how that pops down around there. Go ahead and finish cutting this little rascal off of here. There we go. And then same thing on this side. Didn't quite cut itself apart. I'll just help it there a little bit. Okay. Now again, now we can open our cut up just a little bit if we need to, so the fabric will lay down, pick its own natural line there around that fitting. And we'll go ahead and cut the tail off of this. And Seconite cuts real nice if you have a real sharp edge on a razor. If you use double edge razors, and even these, they tend to dull very rapidly. So to get a nice clean cut, you need a really good sharp blade. Just cut the whiskers off of it here. Now, you see there's a little bit of wrinkling around the edges there. That's where the fabric is relaxed because the tension's been relieved from it. So we take our small iron here now, and we'll just go ahead and lightly iron up to that. We don't want to start pulling big puckers around. If you get it too hot, it's going to over shrink this and you're going to start drawing it away. Come up the outer edge, work into it, and you can see that pull the wrinkles right out of it. A little bit of wrinkling right here. Main thing, what you're doing is just removing the wrinkles around that cutout. Now we got a little pattern here that was done a number of years ago. You see that pattern actually will drop right over this area. What this is now is a pattern we'll use to cut out a fabric patch to go around this, and that'll glue in place. What that does then, that stabilizes all of this fabric in here. After that's glued in place, you only iron up to the edge of the patch. You're still pulling tension on this, but you're not actually moving it. Okay, we're going to go to the other side now. We'll cut the other piece out. Okay, we're at the leading edge now where the front strut fitting is. We're going to do the same procedure here. We're going to cut around this. We're going to get both of these cut out and fit before we start gluing any patches down on them. We want to make sure that all the little wrinkles and stuff are pulled out. And because we're relieving this area, it's going to cause a little slackening out through here again. Just go ahead and cut this out like we did the other side. And extend the cut just past the end a little ways. So remember, you can always cut a little extra. You can't put it back after you cut it out. So be a little caution, use some caution when you start cutting these areas. And again, you can see fabric's loosened up around here. And again, we'll take our small iron, and this is set at about 250 degrees. We're going to do just lightly iron around the edges of this. You can see how it's starting to pull the tension back through the center there. A little on the edge here. Want to be careful, don't get too hot or you're going to start sucking this back. Just what you want to do is get the wrinkles out of it. That looks good right now. And again, our same template here works well enough to use on both ends. That'll lay right in place like that. Okay, next thing we do is get a couple scrap pieces of fabric. We'll mark these out, go ahead and cut them, and then we'll glue those in place and demonstrate the application of that. Okay, I mentioned once before that when you do cutouts of your fabric and so forth, it's a good idea to save the scrap pieces, because there are going to be areas you're going to use those. This is the piece of fabric here that was actually the surplus at the end of the wingtip. And we've got a nice smooth area of fabric here without any creases in it. So we're going to use a piece of this for one of our patch pieces that go onto here. Lay it in place, take our pencil, just pencil mark around this thing. And if you do different aircraft, if you make templates like this for them, it's really nice to label them, have a place to store them, because they can save you an awful lot of time when you start a new job, because you don't have to remake all of these templates every time. Okay, we've got the perimeter marked. Mark the inside edges here. Okay, called the Florian Pinker. Really easy to use. They're a rotary, they're a continuous cut. They do a very nice job on panels and patches like this. On the center areas, let's go ahead and fold that guy. Make a center cut so we can get into it with the scissors. Kind of hard to get into that with the shears, so we'll just go ahead and use a straight cut on the scissors here. I want to cut to the outside of my pencil mark because they mark pretty heavy to the inside edge. Okay, we got our patch cut. We'll just do a preliminary fit here. You can see that fits on there pretty nicely. And that's glued in place. Now that will stabilize this area. When we iron, we'll iron right up to the edge of the patch. We'll bring everything to tension. It's still going to pull the tension on this, and we won't have any wrinkles. Have a very nice fit and finish here around the strut fitting. Okay, I'll go ahead and get this second one cut out, and we'll get it laid on the rear one, and then we'll come back and demonstrate how to glue these. Okay, we've got both of our patches cut now, and it's one way you lay it, and it tries to curl up a little bit. If you have the choice, always lay your patch down where the edges lay down tight. You're going to have a lot less trouble keeping the perimeters glued down and in tight contact while the glue's drying. And slip this into place, get it where we want it. Like we said, on this we can brush glue right down through, or we can actually put wet glue right onto the fabric if we prefer. We'll put a little bit right in the center here, kind of a tight area to get into to brush. And we'll lay our patch into place here. You can see how rapidly that glue wicks right up through that. What we'll do now is just brush a little more right down into here. Got a 100% glue joint there. As we come right on out to the edge, we can brush down through, you notice the penetration that we've got there. So it gives you the option. You can either lift the patch, put a little glue around the edge if you like. A lot of times that's preferable because you don't have to work it quite so much, but again, it's not necessary. You can easily brush this glue right down through the fabric if you choose to do that. Now again, we don't want a bunch of glue lines and ridges showing up out here through our finish. So while that glue is still aggressively wet, we're going to take our paper towel and we're going to wipe these glue areas off. And as you can see, as I do that, all of our spoilage around the edge of that patch is picked up on the towel, or it's wiped down into the fabric. We'll never have any glue lines show up around here now. We've got a little bit of wet glue in the center here. We'll go ahead and wick that out of there also. We don't want glue ridges and glue lines showing through anywhere on this patch. Okay. And again, we've wiped all of the surplus glue off. All the glue, the spoilage around the edges is wiped off. It's just brushed down into the fabric or picked up by the towel. So all we've done around here, we've actually just sealed the fabric with some glue. So that patch is in place. We'll go to the other side of the wing. We'll glue down the second patch. Okay, and this one's in place. Okay, the other one we showed pretty much just brushing down through the fabric. This time we're going to go ahead a little different here, and seeing as how it's not real hot in the shop, we'll go ahead and just kind of brush a perimeter around here to show you the difference. And get that down in place, lay the patch into it, and see how rapidly that wicks up through the fabric. And we'll brush right down through it into that damp glue underneath.